Welcome to this channel. In this video, we are going to explore more about the salts. That's a part of class 10th syllabus. So we are starting with the first, that is bleaching powder. Bleaching powder is CaOCl2, while its chemical name is calcium oxychloride. This is calcium oxychloride is its chemical name. So how it is produced? It is produced by action of chlorine gas over dry slaked lime. So chlorine gas is what? This chlorine gas over dry slaked lime. You know what is dry slaked lime? Well, slaked lime is lime water only. This is calcium oxychloride, sorry, calcium hydroxide. This is slaked lime. And we also know it as a lime water, but when it is aqueous in nature, right? When it is soluble form. But here we are using the dry slaked lime. So when dry slaked lime, over the dry slaked lime, when chlorine gas is added, what do we get is calcium oxychloride, and water is released. Now this is what bleaching powder here. Now we'll talk about its applications. Where do we use? So bleaching powder is used in cotton and textile industries. Well, it's mainly to remove the pigment, like the cotton so obtained from the industry have pigment, so it has to be removed. Similarly, we use it in paper industries also when we have to bleach the wood pulp. These are two bleaching uses, but we have uses of this other than the bleaching purpose. The third one is it is used as an oxidizing agent, as it is a supplier of oxygen. Whenever any substance reacts with this, it loses oxygen, and that's why we use it, or it oxidizes the other, and that's why we use it as an oxidizing agent. Further, it has disinfecting property, and that's why it is used for disinfecting drinking water. You might have seen this powder near the place where we dump the different household junks and all. Now, we'll discuss questions based on this. I can see these are some frequently asked questions from this chapter. The first question here is, which of the following chemical, let me read it again. This is what is the chemical name of bleaching powder? So I told you chemical name of bleaching powder is calcium oxychloride. The next question is, what is the chemical formula of bleaching powder? Chemical formula of bleaching powder is this, that is CaOCl2, calcium oxychloride. We have done these two. Next is, what are the materials used for preparation of bleaching powder? So what we said that when chlorine gas is passed over dry slaked lime, so that this is slaked lime, calcium oxychloride is slaked lime. So when chlorine gas is passed over it, we get calcium oxychloride, that is bleaching powder and water. So we can see the raw material which is needed for making this is number one, chlorine gas, and the second is dry slaked lime. In the next question, we have the use, state one use of the bleaching powder other than bleaching. So as we know that for its bleaching, we are using in cotton textile and in wood pulp, but we are looking for one which is non-bleaching use. Therefore, we can write it that it is used as an oxidizing agent, as it supply oxygen or loses oxygen. And the second use is disinfecting water. So you should know that actually it liberates chlorine, and chlorine, as you know, that it is used as a disinfection for purpose of disinfection. And that's why we say that it is used for disinfecting drinking water. The last one is, with which substance is chlorine should be treated to get bleaching powder? Now we have already discussed here that is, it is the chlorine should be treated with calcium hydroxide, but you must name it dry slaked lime, not only calcium hydroxide. You should say it's dry slaked lime to produce calcium oxychloride, that is bleaching powder. The next salt which we are going to study here is about baking soda. Baking soda is chemically sodium hydrogen carbonate. You may call it sodium bicarbonate also, right? Sodium hydrogen carbonate is same as sodium bicarbonate. Now, how it is produced here, the raw materials needed for making Baking soda is number one, sodium chloride, that's common salt or kitchen salt, water, carbon dioxide, and ammonia. These are the raw materials, and the product so formed is ammonium chloride, and this is baking soda. As I said, it is chemically called sodium hydrogen carbonate or sodium bicarbonate. Well, this byproduct is ammonium chloride, and it is also a useful product here. And this is a sublimable substance that you might have studied in lower classes. So the raw material is important. You have to remember it is sodium chloride, water, carbon dioxide, ammonia. These are the raw material required for making bleaching powder, chemically called calcium hydrogen carbonate or calcium bicarbonate. Now, this is a mild base. Now, let's understand why should we say it's a mild non-corrosive base, because this sodium hydrogen carbonate, NaHCO3. If you look into the possible base for with which it is made up of, has to be sodium compound, that is sodium hydroxide, NaOH2, and this HNO3 is carbonic acid, that is HCO3, not NO3, HCO3. You know that this is a strong base. This is a strong base here, and this is a weak acid. So you should know that when strong base reacts with a weak acid, it keeps a salt, and the salt is basic in nature. Here the salt has to be basic in nature. That means it will turn red litmus blue. This is a basic, but it is a mild non-corrosive base, and therefore we use it for in food industries or in making baking cake or in bakery. Now, we have one more important property, that when it is heated, right? When it is heated, it actually decomposes into sodium carbonate, water, and carbon dioxide. Here, emphasis should be given to this carbon dioxide, because this is the reason why we use in bakery, because the carbon dioxide so released make holes and the dough rises. For example, if I take this dough and mix it with baking soda on heating, it will expand and will make many holes here. And that is the reason the cake becomes fluffy. So the carbon dioxide produced during this escape out of the dough by making tiny holes everywhere. And that's why the dough rises and the cake becomes fluffy. So this is the reason why carbon dioxide is used for making the bread rise. But anyway, we have to remember that when sodium carbonate is mixed with the dough, or otherwise also when if it is heated, it decomposes to give sodium carbonate, water, and carbon dioxide. Well, carbon dioxide escapes making holes, and that's why we use it for in the bakery. So when it comes to its uses, we should know that baking powder, which is nothing but a mixture. So there's one more thing that we should know, that we do not use baking soda as it is in bakery industry. Reason being, it's being a base, as you know, it's a mild base. So therefore, are bitter in taste, so that cake or the bread will become bitter in taste. So to neutralize it, we add small amount of tartaric acid. Well, we can use any edible acids. Mostly it is tartaric acid is used because of its pleasant smell. Sometimes other acids are also used. Could be ethanoic acid, or we can use citric acid because of its pleasant smell. Now, as I said, that this is a mild base, so therefore the cake will become bitter. So we mix a small amount of tartaric acid or any edible acids. So we can say that baking soda is different from baking powder, but for a small thing, baking soda and baking powder. One more time, baking soda and baking powder has small difference, that this baking soda, when it is added with small amount of tartaric acid, becomes baking powder. One more time, in baking soda, if we add small amount of tartaric acid, that will give you baking powder. So the one which you use in our house for making cake is not actually baking soda, it's a baking powder. And as I said, it's a mixture of baking soda and tartaric acid. So when this powder is heated along with the dough, carbon dioxide comes out of it, making the bread soft and spongy. Now, as we know that it is a mild base, that is mild and non-corrosive base, and that means we can consume it. And this is the reason why we use it as an antacid. You know that during the process of digestion, the stomach releases hydrochloric acid. The gastric juice consists of hydrochloric acid. This acid, if it is produced in excess amount in some conditions like by eating spicy foods or could be any other problems associated with the stomach. So this acid, when produced in excess amount, it causes pain in our stomach or the intestine, and that's called the acidity. Now, this acid can be neutralized, but we need a base, but we cannot consume any strong base, and that is the reason why we use a mild base. So this mild base helps in neutralizing the excess acid produced in the stomach, and we get a relief from it. And this is one reason why we use this as an antacid. One more time, this is a mild base and therefore it is non-corrosive. So we use it as an antacid to get relief from the excess acid produced in the stomach or the pain. We get relief from the pain. So that's why we say antacid. Antacid is not an acid produced by ant. Obviously, this is an acid. This is a substance or a medicine which is taken to get relief from acidity. That's why we use antacid term. Now, further, as you know, that carbon dioxide is an extinguisher of a fire. That means it is a non-supporter of combustion. This gives the another application of this baking soda is that it is used in soda acid fire extinguisher. So most of the fire extinguishers that you see in movie hall and the mall, so they are basically soda acid fire extinguisher. Now, based on this, we are going to now discuss some questions. Now, I've taken first 3 questions. In the first question, it says a person found that the cake prepared by him is hard and small in size. Which ingredient has he forgotten so that he would have caused the cake to rise and become light? Explain your answer. Now, we know that it is the baking powder which makes the cake fluffy. And the reason here is that for the explanation, you should know that you should write down the reaction first and say that when baking powder, when it is heated, it gives rise to carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide escapes from the dough, making the dough to rise, and therefore the cake rise and becomes light and fluffy. So he must have forgotten to add baking soda or baking powder is better. Now, in the next question, we have, in addition to sodium hydrogen carbonate, that is sodium bicarbonate is this only. Baking powder, that is baking powder is, we are talking about baking powder, this. A substance X is added. We have to name that substance and its role in making the baking powder. Right. So what I told you already that this baking soda is a mild base, so it's bitter in taste. And in order to make it turn into baking powder, we mix this baking soda with small amount of edible acid, that is tartaric acid. So we can say that he missed here, X that he missed must be tartaric acid or mild edible acid. And I told you the role of this as this tartaric acid neutralizes the baking soda. It helps in neutralizing the baking soda and turn into baking powder. Now, the next question is very similar. It says, name 2 constituent of baking powder. So baking powder, once again, we can say baking powder is a mixture of baking soda and tartaric. So baking powder is a mixture of baking soda and tartaric acid. Now, I've added 3 more questions here. The first one is, how is baking soda differ from baking powder? Well, baking soda, when it is mixed with tartaric acid, become baking powder. That's the main difference. In the next question, we have explain the action of baking powder in making the cake. So we have to write down this reaction that when sodium hydrogen carbonate, that is sodium bicarbonate, general name is baking soda, when it is heated, it gives rise to sodium chloride, water, and carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide so released makes the cake fluffy as it escapes out of it. Then we have one more question. Describe how sodium hydrogen carbonate baking soda produced in large scale. So this is not a part of class 10th syllabus, so you may skip these questions. But then you can remember the one which is used in lab to produce it, that is sodium chloride, water. These are the raw materials needed. Sodium chloride, water, carbon dioxide, and ammonia are the raw materials which are used for the preparation of baking soda in the lab. Sodium chloride, water, carbon dioxide, and ammonia. That also results in the formation of another useful byproduct, that is ammonium chloride. That's a sublimable substance used in industry. We'll continue with this in the next video.